Hello and welcome to Pop Culture Shark. I'm Final Monkey.
And I'm Caleb.
We've been gone for a few weeks, but we are back. A lot of life happened. a
Yes.
lot of traveling, graduations, just all kinds of stuff. So we decided to take a few weeks off and kind of reboot a little bit. Um, we were hoping to get a lot more done for the live stream, but like I said, life has just been happening. So uh, be on the lookout for a little bit of a relaunch here soon, where we add some new features and stuff to the live stream. But it's coming. It's just we've been very busy.
Yeah. So, summer months are they're not busy, but they're busy at the same time. It's not school, it's not work, but it's stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna start a new segment today called the Weekend Checkup. Basically, we're just gonna check in, see what we've been watching or viewing, or it's the same word, playing. Video games we've been playing or books we've been reading. So Caleb, we'll start with you. What's your weekend checkup look like?
So for the past couple of weeks, I I don't even remember why this happened. I was willing to give it one more shot because we were talking about it, and then I went to a wedding where they were telling me I was crazy because I didn't like it. So I restarted my save file. I started from the very beginning um, of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I ended up 100%ing it in about 2 weeks.
That's a lot. So you say
Yeah.
100%. You could found every shrine.
Yep.
100%. Okay.
Yep. The Okay, so it's not 100% because I didn't get all the Korok seeds, but that's 900 of them, and I'm not doing that.
Yeah, and it's not worth the reward you get for that.
Yeah. But yeah, I got all the shrines. I haven't done any of the DLC. I'm gonna wait on that. But my pride hurts right now. Because it's a good game. It's good.
I've often said, Breath of the Wild is one of my favorite games I've ever played. It's just not a good Zelda game.
Yeah. Well, and so what I did during my first playthrough, was I'm like, okay, durability system sucks. I hate this. I'm just going to grind to get the Master Sword as quick as possible. And that is not the way to do it. That's what I thought I could do. But this time I'm like, you know what? What I'm going to do is I'm going to play the game like I assume you should. I'm going to go to Kakariko Village. I'm going to get all the missions. I'm going to then make my way to Zora's Domain, do the shrines as they come, and play it as that. So I did Zora's Domain, then I went to Death Mountain, then I did the Rito Village, and then Gerudo Desert. That's the order I did it in, which I assume is the order that most people did it in. And then I got the Master Sword before Rito Village, honestly. So like it happened naturally, and then I ended up I was at about 60 shrines whenever I beat the game itself, and then so I'm like, cool, I'm done. I'm not gonna do anything. But then like I felt the need to keep playing it, and so I'm like, you know what? Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take this whole Saturday, and I'm gonna see if I can get 100 shrines. If I can get 100 shrines, which is 40 shrines at that point, because I only had 60. If I get 40 shrines in one day, I'll 100% this, and I did it. So
my issue with games like Breath of the Wild is, as a someone who's middle aged, I don't have a lot of time to play games, and so I play games, and then it may be a couple weeks before I get to play again. So a lot of Breath of the Wild shrines are test your might shrines.
Yes, and I've gotten really good at those.
And so the first couple teach you how to fight, but if you don't play it every week, you forget how to fight.
Right, yeah.
So those kick your butt, and I'm really bad about combat in Zelda. I just am. just because I forget, the mechanics, and so those test your might ones. I mean, I can usually beat them, but it's just frustrating. I usually have to rig the system a little bit,
Yeah.
build some ice things to stand on, attack from up there, do some weird stuff, and
Well, and
but
so that's the cool thing though, is like you can find out what works for you. That's the one thing that I do like, is like you find out what works for you.
and
Um,
and that's the cool thing about Breath of the Wild is they built. I guess I'm trying to think of the right word to this engine of techniques you can do, that stuff that they didn't even think of people started doing, and it
yeah,
all works beautifully. Um, so yeah, just like I really like this game, and so part of what this weekend checkup is going to do is, would you recommend whatever you were watching or playing?
I
Um,
would. I would.
Obviously, you would recommend
Yeah,
that,
yeah. Well, I would. So the reason, and so this will be a part of my weekend checkup as well. I'm 2 weeks into my new job. So I've been working my new job where I'm working from home, and honestly, that's kind of part of the reason why I was able to do Breath of the Wild, is because I work from 8 to 4:30 for my training, and then I figure out what my schedule is later.
right?
But then I would play that, and so I would recommend it if you have the time. I 100%ed it in about maybe about 40 hours.
The way I played Breath of the Wild is, obviously the shrines, but it will track on the map where you've been. So
Hmm.
I just go, oh, there's an area I've never been to. I wonder what's over there. When I
Yeah.
get a chance to pick up and play, you'll find something completely brand new every time you play it.
No, yeah, that's what it is. Is like you just, hey, I see that over there. I wonder what's over there, and then you go over there.
Yeah, which is
I
really cool. That is the spirit of the original Legend of Zelda game,
Yeah,
and it's really close to being a great Zelda game. If they had, instead of,
shrine
what was it?
sponges.
Yeah, if they had just done 8 massive underground dungeons, and took
Yeah,
all those shrine puzzles and combined them and put them into those
yeah,
with
yeah,
more traditional enemies, walking around those, it would have been the ultimate Zelda game.
yeah.
It would.
Now, I do think that we're going to be getting that with the sequel to Breath of the Wild.
I really hope so, but I'm getting a lot of Skyward Sword vibes from the sequel, and that makes me a little nervous. So
So funny thing, because I'm like I need to play some more Zelda. Um, I picked up Skyward Sword HD today, so I'm gonna play it
okay,
tonight. I
nice.
don't think I've ever played that one actually, because
I've never beaten that one. I got really far, like over halfway through the game, and something happened to, what was that, on the Wii or Wii U, or
it was on the Wii.
something happened to the Wii. The Wii got dropped and wasn't working right. Like I couldn't pass a certain point in the game; it would just free lock up. Uh,
Mm,
so I never, eventually the Wii got fixed, but by then I'd lost complete interest in the game.
yeah,
Um, it's not my favorite, but you know it's okay.
yeah.
I don't like the map system in that one.
Okay,
Um,
gotcha.
so
What I'm excited about is I can get into motion controls, like if I'm in a big group or a party and it's fun. But like if I'm playing motion controls by myself, like it's like playing motion controls by yourself is kind of like watching a comedy by yourself.
yeah,
Um,
I
like
get you.
so with this you'll be able to I'll be able to use like the thumbstick to do all that stuff. That's actually the reason why I bought Skyward Sword, is because I'm definitely getting some Breath of the Wild vibes from. I'm not Skyward Sword vibes from the sequel to Breath of the Wild. I'm getting Skyward Sword, Ocarina of Time, and Twilight Princess from that, and so I'm wondering if that ends up being kind of like the catalyst. Is those 3 games that lead into Breath of the Wild, because those are all in one concurrent timeline.
It's hard to say with Nintendo what they're gonna do with Zelda,
Yeah.
and I try not to speculate too much of that because that's when I get disappointed in the game. We're like, well, obviously this was a sequel to Majora's Mask, and it's not, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. What about you? That's my weekend checkup. I recommend it if you have the time. If you don't have the time, I don't recommend it. Like it's really, I think you're doing the game a disservice if it's just a game that you're gonna pick up and play every so often.
and I think the biggest issue, the two issues people have with the game is the lack of dungeons, which you know you have shrines, so it's kind of the same thing, and the weapon system. And the weapon system is really not bad because if you play it for a while, you get a lot of weapons.
Right, and that's the main thing because whenever I played it, I didn't play it as often, and like I was like, oh, cool, another Boko Club, or like, but
Yeah,
later on, you get the light scale trident, you get, it's once you get the champion weapons. The champion weapons are dope. I love those.
yeah, and you can. I think they rebuild them if you break them or whatever. So I
Yep.
mean, it's you
Mm,
know it's
yep.
all in there. As for me, um, for those who don't know, Caleb is my nephew, and my mother-in-law or his grandma has been visiting us. So I've been watching a lot, and I mean a lot of Little House on the Prairie. Um, I never grew up watching Little House on the Prairie. I mean, I'd see bits of it here and there. And I'm not saying there are decent episodes, but you know, I just it's it's painful to watch sometimes. Um, so you know, if you like that type of stuff, I recommend it. But otherwise, you know,
Yeah.
maybe check out some of the cool episodes, like you know, where Jesse James visits the town, or you know, something like that. um,
Visits the town.
that's a real episode.
Well, you know what? That's a, if you think about it, Breath of the Wild and Little House on the Prairie may have more in common than you think.
Probably do.
Um,
Um,
no,
yeah,
what's funny is whenever I go over to her apartment to visit, I'll let her know. Uh, and I'm very tactful about it. I don't tell her until like 2 hours before because I know she's not doing anything. But
yeah,
I don't want to tell her, hey, I'm going to come over on Thursday, and then like have to bail on that.
right.
So I'll let her know like 2 hours before, and so I'll get there, and she'll change it from like Gunsmoke to whatever's on TNT, and I watched Rush Hour 2 with her. It was really funny.
That's fun. Um, yeah, so you know, we had fun with her visiting and stuff, and but it was so hot down here, we could not like do anything.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. We had like a little bit of a heat wave here in Kentucky, and I mean, like it didn't even get to triple digits, and I was dying.
Oh, it's been over 100 degrees like every day for. I mean, we've had a couple breaks here and there, but for like the last 2-3 weeks, it's been hot.
So that's the nice thing about working from home is at my old job, whenever I worked in the medical facility, um, it was a lot. I worked with a lot of old people. A lot of our clientele was old people, and so they kept it really hot because that's what old people do for some reason, and I don't get it. Um, but now that I'm working from home, I'm just on the computer. I'm doing my training, and I got like 4 fans going. It's great.
That's awesome. What else have I been reading? I've been reading. Uh, I'm almost off the Epic Spider-Mans. I've got. I'm on the last volume that I have, and that's the one where Gwen Stacy dies.
Ooh.
Not there yet. I'm reading about the Gibbon, and they just introduced Hammerhead, and you know, and what's interesting, there's no hints that Gwen Stacy's about to die at all. You know, it's just normal Gwen worrying about Peter or this or that. You know, so
Yeah, yeah. I
I,
gotta. Is there uh, a documentary about that? Because I remember I watched a documentary on like it was on like VH1 or something when I was a kid. There where the documentary was just about the death of Jason Todd, and they explained all that. So I know a lot about that. I have no idea where the death of Gwen Stacy comes from.
um, and this is just me remembering off the top of my head. apparently Stan Lee was busy like in Europe doing something, and they called him and said, "Hey, we're killing off Gwen Stacy," and he's like, "Oh yeah, sure, whatever." And he didn't hear what they said, so when he got back, he was like, "Wait, what did you do?" So they claim they told him, but he's like, "Oh, I never heard that," and I think Jerry Conway's the one that wrote the story. Um, so I think even he was a little shocked. So, uh, it's interesting because I like the dynamic going on in the comic, between Gwen and Flash is back now, and Mary Jane, Harry, but it's
Mhm.
like you kind of need to shake it up. So I could see why they
Yeah,
they
yeah.
killed off Gwen, and
Well, there comes a point in those comics where like you got your um because I'm a Buffy fan. I've always, like most people would call it an Archie gang. I've always called it a Scooby gang.
yeah,
They very much have that kind of Scooby gang vibe to them.
it's very much Archie with Betty and Veronica of Mary Jane and Gwen. Um,
Yes.
I could definitely see that's what Stanley was going for, and it really works. I mean, Mary Jane's a little bit more ditzy than I want her to be, but at the same time, if you read it thinking that she knows that Peter is Spider-Man, it reads completely different. The
Right.
way she's
Well,
acting and stuff.
and you also have to read it knowing how her home life is or was.
Yeah,
Because I mean, I don't know if this is what they intended. Because retroactively writing is a thing, but you recognize, and obviously this is something we're going to get to today, but whenever you think about Mary Jane's home life, her being the ditzy party girl is a very interesting uh, mask to wear.
yeah, yeah. So I'm curious to see her character grow because I know she completely changes once Gwen dies. Um, so of course this is the last volume I've got, so I might be a while for I get to read more. But yeah, and I've been reading through these Spider-Man epics for the last couple months, so I'm eager to read something different, Um, but also I'm glad I've taken this journey of seeing what everything's built on this all this Spider-Man mythos, So and realizing that Stan Lee, pretty good writer.
Yeah, yeah. When he is paired with the right artist, he's really good.
And when you think that he was writing like 10 comic books a month or whatever it was at
Yeah.
one point, and
Yep.
I mean you'll get a clunker now and then, but for the most part they're pretty good.
Yep.
They're certainly more serviceable than most modern comics, you know.
Yeah.
So, and that's a whole nother topic. But what else? I started watching The Orville, which I had never, for whatever reason, I didn't catch when it was originally airing. I
I
was seeing the trailers for the new season, and that's why I was like, "Oh, that looks pretty good," and so I've started. And I'm really enjoying that.
I've heard that it's the best Star Trek show.
It's not bad. I'm still in season one just because uh, you know, your grandma was here, so I didn't get a lot of chance to watch it. But you can see the season one issues. We're still trying to figure out the show, but it's having a much better season one than Star Trek Next Generation did. and and these are not bad. I can see what they're setting up. These are not bad little kind of classic Star Trek sci-fi stories they're doing. I mean, they're doing stupid jokes, and I think they kind of rein that in as the show goes on. I've heard.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, because it's Seth MacFarlane, I think he kind of has to like he comes out of the gates with his regular stuff, and then it's like, oh wow, this guy's an actual like artist.
well, and I think what happened was, from what I've heard, and again, this is all what I heard, is he wanted to do a Star Trek show, but he couldn't sell it unless he sold it as a comedy. So he sold it as, oh, it's one of my Seth MacFarlane comedies, and now he's toning that down because he wants to do a Star Trek show.
Mm.
And now that he's gotten a little bit more freedom, he's dialing all that back. So Yeah, I'm about halfway through season 1 and really enjoying that.
Mhm.
So I would definitely recommend it. I don't know where it goes. I don't know a whole lot about the show. It is interesting that Norm Macdonald does a voice of a character on there. So I'll do
I'm familiar with that character. I've seen that character. He's just like
a blob.
just a blob he's always hitting on like a nurse, right?
Yeah, he's sitting on the doctor constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's fun. Is there anything else? I've just been watching a lot of YouTube videos about Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm still obsessed with that movie. It is still amazing, and it's still in the top 10 of the movies that are out right now. Which, I mean, it's not making a lot of money. It's like make a couple 100,000, but it's still in the top 10. So,
and I still haven't seen it. I haven't seen a lot of movies actually. I've really been taking the time to like stay like if I'm gonna stay home and work, not spend money on gas, I'm like, what if I go on a spending freeze? How much am I gonna build up as a poor 25-year-old, living on his own with his brother? How much can I say? So I didn't see Top Gun. I think the last movie I saw was I think it was Doctor Strange actually.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna start running out of time because I've got a fireworks thing to go to tonight.
Oh,
so
fun.
let's switch over to news real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Usually during the month of June we have E3. However, they did not, for whatever reason, decide not to do a show this year. But still, I think Microsoft did a presentation. I think did Sony do a presentation?
Yes.
No.
Yeah. Yes, they did. Yeah, they did.
So the only one we haven't gotten yet is Nintendo. There's
Yeah.
rumors there might be one this week, but
I'm waiting on it. That's why I'm getting super hyped for Zelda, because I'm like, if we get Nintendo Direct this week, that means we're getting a release date and we're getting a name. So I don't have to say the sequel to Breath of the Wild.
I want them to call it Death of the Wild so bad.
You know what? But they said that they said that it's going to kind of spoil a little bit. And so Death of the Wild, I don't think spoils a whole lot. I think it's going to have something to do with like sky or time or something like that, because there have been hints of the Skyloft and sky stuff, and there have been hints of like time reversal and time travel. So
doesn't he have like a glove or something in the game, or there's some
yes.
hand thing going on? It's probably going to be something, the hand of blah 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 or something.
Right. Well, so the Sheikah Slate, I would assume they're not going to do that gimmick in this one, because the Sheikah Slate was definitely for the Wii U, and then they put it on the Switch. It's very weird because I've never seen it happen before, because whenever Twilight Princess comes out, the definitive version of Twilight Princess when it came out was the GameCube version, and they just ported it to the Wii. Whenever Breath of the Wild comes out, do not play the Wii U version, because there's so much slowdown and frame drops. But you can definitely tell that the Sheikah Slate was supposed to represent the
gamepad.
Yeah, the Wii U gamepad.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised if they get rid of the Sheikah Slate. But yes, I'm hoping for some Nintendo. I'm hoping, because if we get Nintendo, I know that there have been leaks of the new mainline Fire Emblem game, which is exciting. I'm going to be sorely disappointed again because we're not going to get anything on Metroid Prime 4 because that game doesn't exist.
Eventually, that's just going to show up out of nowhere. When everybody has forgotten about it, it's just going to show up. But
you know what? You're right, because we forgot. Dread was announced in 2002, and it did not come out for like 20 years.
Yeah, I mean it'll just happen, and same thing with Mother 3 was hinted forever, and then it came out but didn't come out.
Yeah.
So you never know what Nintendo's going to do. Yeah,
We got the Sonic Frontier gameplay, which does not look exciting, unfortunately. Um, I
I saw some of Microsoft's conference, but it was the same problem I have with most modern gaming. Every game looks the same.
yeah, no, I get it. Um, so the one that I really want to talk about, and I gotta reel it in because I'll talk about this forever. Um, there last week we had a Final Fantasy VII 25th anniversary celebration stream. It was a glorious 15 minutes where they talked about Final Fantasy VII: The First Soldier, which I'm embarrassed to say that I've been playing lately. Yes, I have been playing Final Fantasy Fortnite on my phone. Uh, they gave us stuff on Ever Crisis, which is super exciting, and then they announced two major things. We have Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion, which is a remake slash remaster of Crisis Core. But honestly, like we're all thinking it's going to have something. It's not going to be just Crisis Core, but with updated graphics. It's gonna like there's going to be like a cutscene at the end that we're going to get more information on Zack's timeline in this Final Fantasy VII remake um, cinematic universe that they've got going on. So that's super exciting. I believe they have the new voice actors. So we've got Zack's new voice actor, and then of course not only did they announce the name, they announced a release window and they gave us gameplay, actual Unreal Engine 5 gameplay of the sequel to Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And I'm so excited for it. Honestly, everything that I want to say about it, I encourage everyone. I say this. I think the best um, in my opinion, the best major gaming news YouTube slash website or whatever is Easy Allies. I love Easy Allies. And so, if anyone is interested in Final Fantasy VII, the remake, Rebirth, all that, a couple days ago, I think it was actually yesterday or 2 days ago, they released a um, discussion video with Brad Ellis, Mike Damiani, and Maximilian of fighting game fame. And they talk for maybe an hour and a half just about their theories and whatnot. It's super fascinating. So just so that way I don't have to talk about it forever, I encourage everyone to go, if you've got the time, go watch that because everyone's super excited for Final Fantasy again, and it's awesome.
cool. Yeah, I haven't seen too many games that have really excited me that were part of this now at E3. And I'm not a huge Final Fantasy guy,
Mhm.
but the one game that has just came out like last week, maybe the week before, the game that has excited me is Ninja Turtle Shredder's Revenge.
I figured that we'd talk about this.
That game looks dope. That is,
Yes.
and I've watched some playthroughs of like the first like 4 or 5 levels, and I turned it off. Like, okay, I don't need to spoil everything. But
Yeah.
just the love that went into this game, the references to the old cartoon, just little things in the background, and it looks like it's fun to play. I can't wait to get this.
Yeah. What I got to do, I got to figure out how long this game is because one of my fondest memories is me, my brother, my dad, and my other uncle, Craig. We played through. He had a jailbroken Xbox,
Hmm.
and he had like an emulator with the old Turtles arcade game on there, and we like played through that so much.
Yeah.
And even whenever we went up to Indianapolis a couple, maybe like a month ago or so, we went to 16-bit, the arcade bar,
Hmm.
and me, my brother, and my dad, we just stood there and we played through the whole TMNT game on the arcade. It was awesome. I love the Turtles. Turtles games are just like solid, you know?
Yeah. This one. Yeah, I've seen people play on easy, which seemed a little too easy. The gnarly difficult mode is very difficult, and I'm almost tempted to get when I play it just to play gnarly mode, just so it makes the game last longer.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but it has 6-player online mode, and
yeah.
I've watched
That
some
which is
video clips of
sick.
that, and it's just chaos.
Who are? Because I know you have to unlock Casey. Who are the main six characters? Is it
The 4 turtles, Splinter, and April.
okay?
Yeah.
Because I was like, wait a second, they didn't make Venus playable, right?
No, although she is back in the comic books.
Huh?
That's another topic. If you get me on turtles, that'll be what the show is from here on. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. I gotta, I gotta get in on that game because like Turtles, they're the best beat 'em ups. Even did you ever play the GameCube ones that are based on the 2003 show?
I feel like I did at your house.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah, because I have the first one, and even then, I love that one. Just turtle beat 'em ups are cool. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I feel like this is a genre that not quite dead, but it's not as big as it used to be, and I wish it would become like a big deal again.
hmm. Yeah,
Um,
and it just seems like the Scott Pilgrim one came out at the wrong time. Came out like
yeah,
10 years too early. It's still one of my favorites, though. I love that one.
yeah. Then we had Streets of Rage 4.
Yep.
So definitely a cool game. Definitely check it out if you like the turtles at all. I would definitely check it out.
I'd check it out even if you don't like Turtles, just because, like, I mean, everyone loves that old arcade game. You
Yeah,
know?
and it's just silly because like the foot soldiers are constantly doing stuff in the background. Like no matter where you
Yeah.
go, they're working at the mall, working the cash registers and stuff. And it makes no sense whatsoever.
Oh, did you see that? I don't know what you do to how you. I don't know how you redeem this, but I know that there's some edition of the game that comes with like a coupon to Pizza Hut.
Yeah, they had some collector sets and stuff, and yeah, one of them had like the Pizza Hut coupon, like the old games did. It was really funny. Um,
That I mean that's true respect. I love that.
yeah, a lot of people don't realize how big the turtles were in the 80s and 90s.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, they're still a big deal, but it wasn't like when that first cartoon came out and those first games were coming out.
Hmm.
It was extremely popular. So it's just really cool that this one's out. I hope they do some more. I mean, it seems like this one's very successful, so I'm hoping they get to make some more. So.
Oh, I guarantee you. I don't. I bet you we get. They're not gonna do just a remake, but I'm sure we'll get something that's gonna be like, okay, so we did Shredder's Revenge. Here comes a new Turtles in Time style game.
Yeah, because you could lean more in on the Renee and what's his name, Savanti Romero stuff from the comics, where he's oh, we're gonna start talking about turtles. I gotta stop. We'll talk about
Okay,
turtles
okay,
later.
okay. Reel it in. No, so Final Fantasy Turtles. Reel it in.
All right, we'll switch to the next news topic. This is new Netflix show that you were mentioning, Castlevania Nocturne.
Yes, I'm super excited for this one. It's what I wanted because so they spent 4 seasons on Trevor, which I think is weird, but it's great because I love the show. Um, but there comes a point where I get impatient, and so the Belmont after Trevor is Simon, and I don't think Simon is just a good boy. You know, Simon is your basic shonen protagonist. Um, and I don't know if that would be an interesting show. So for Castlevania Nocturne, they are skipping straight to Rondo of Blood with Richter Belmont, bringing back Alucard, and I'm so excited for it because I love Rondo of Blood and I love Symphony of the Night. So yeah, we don't have much information. I don't even think we have a release date yet, but it's just cool to know that they announced it.
Do we know if Warren Ellis is involved? I know he got in trouble, so I
I
didn't know if
doubt
they.
it.
Okay. Because I don't know
Let's
if he's kind of
see.
like the magic that made the original. Sometimes you remove that piece that makes everything work and things fall apart. So
Let's see. Not much information has been announced.
okay.
Set
Let's
during the French Revolution. Okay.
all right. Let's cool though it's coming. Hopefully they don't kill it. A lot of things at Netflix are getting killed right now.
Yeah.
So, but hopefully that comes out. That sounds awesome. So Caleb discussed adding another new segment to the show,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the final monkey's paw. This is where we have wished for something, and we could do a whole show on these because I have several of these where I wished for something, and then it happened, and it was not what I wanted.
Yeah.
So, what do you got for us this week, Caleb?
So everyone knows how big of a Speed Racer fan I am and how I'm just like, please, Speed Racer, anything, another movie, another TV show, give me a video game, something. Well, they announced a Speed Racer TV show, and it's coming soon from J.J. Abrams.
Oh, JJ.
This is not what I wanted.
I was never like a J.J. Abrams fan, but it was just kind of like, oh, J.J. Abrams, okay, whatever. But now here in the last, I don't know, 3 years or so, I've just become to a point where I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah.
You see the pattern of how he treats things, and you see his gimmicks of, okay, I'm gonna set up these mysteries. I'm not gonna resolve them all. I'm out, and and I'm sure the first one will probably be enjoyable, whatever he does, and then the whole thing's gonna fall apart because it's built on nothing.
They're gonna set up Racer X, and then it's gonna turn out that it's not Rex Racer, but then it is, but then it's not Rex Racer. They don't know who he is.
You know what it's gonna be? It's gonna be a clone of his brother.
Oh man. It's and they're not going to explain how there is somehow Rex Racer is returned. This is not what I wanted.
Yeah, I don't know. Speed Racer is a hard thing to adapt.
And yet the Wachowskis did it perfectly.
That fight scene,
it was
amazing.
It was great.
A lot of people hate that movie, but then they're like, "Oh, I've never seen Speed Racer." I'm like, "Well, that's why you hate it, because this is just like an episode of Speed Racer."
Right. Well, and not just that. There are people who I know that crap on that movie, like having never seen the movie.
Yeah, it just has a reputation.
Yeah, it just has a reputation of it came out. So here's the thing. For me, everything after Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, is fair game. You can do whatever you want. They made Guardians of the Galaxy work in live action. You can do whatever you want in movies now.
Sure.
But so it was an anime movie that came out before Guardians of the Galaxy. And so people are just like, oh, it's like, The Last Airbender or Dragon Ball Evolution. No, it's not. This is actually good and faithful and awesome. And there's some people who are like, yeah, I've never seen it before. Then they watch it and they're like, wow, that was great.
Yeah.
That movie is fantastic.
Well, the Wachowskis went through a period where after Matrix, Matrix 3 didn't hit as hard as people wanted, and then they just started hating everything the Wachowskis were attached to, no matter what. It's like, oh no, they can't make, Matrix was a fluke. They can't do anything. This was the
you know what? Maybe Speed Racer is like the sweet spot. Maybe it's the redeemer, because what you just said about how people felt about the Wachowskis is exactly how I feel about J.J. Abrams. I feel like he had one or two hits, because I love Mission Impossible 3, I love Super 8, and I love that first Star Trek movie. Everything else I'm not a fan of. Maybe Speed Racer is what brings him back, kind of like the Wachowskis.
It seems to me that J.J. Abrams is all about getting entangled into companies where his people cannot get detached, and he just makes money forever.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we saw happen with Star Trek, and a little bit of Star Wars, and it's just he just seems to take studios money and run.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite deliver on what they're asking for. So who knows? uh I'd feel much more excited about this if someone like Peter Jackson or somebody was doing Speed Racer, someone who, if someone that was like a fan set out to make one. I think that would be more exciting. But yeah, I have no idea if Peter Jackson likes Speed Racer. I'm just throwing out a name, but you know what I'm saying.
Vin Diesel.
Well, I just thought
Speed
about,
Racer.
maybe get some of the Fast and Furious people to make a Speed Racer movie. Not
Yeah.
necessarily the cast, but
Justin
people.
Lin.
Yeah,
Yeah, I could get down with that.
yeah, that would be much more exciting than this. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we might talk about some more of these. I know I've got several, like, oh, I want the Muppets to come back, and then it's like, no, what they do to the Muppets. So,
Which Muppets did you not like that 30 Rock show they did?
yeah, that and just current Disney
Oh,
Muppets is kind of a
okay.
mess. So they've had some, like they did a little Haunted Mansion special that was kind of fun. Uh, but I think Muppets Tonight, or no one ever really talks about it. I think that is like the peak Muppets. It is awesome.
Okay. Because I that Muppets ABC show, the 30 Rock ripoff, I actually like that one. But that's just because I love 30 Rock, and
Yeah,
it
that's more your thing. The
yeah.
the awkward interviews and all that.
Yeah.
Muppets Tonight. I mean, they did an episode where they had Prince on there singing country songs with an alligator. I mean, it was wild.
Oh no! So that's what I love about the Muppets. My favorite scene in the Muppets ABC show
Mm-hmm.
is so it's Miss Piggy. She's got her own talk show,
Mm-hmm.
and what's gonna happen is Grover is gonna be like, uh, I'm not too up on like Muppets lore. He's got some sort of like alter ego with a cape where he goes
You
flying.
mean Gonzo?
What did I say?
Grover. I was like,
Grover.
Grover Sesame Street, man.
That's
Uh,
Sesame Street. Yeah, I'm not. So yeah,
yeah, he always does the stunts where he has the cape on and all
yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the whole episode is about him like trying to dust it off, and I'm gonna do this stunt again, and then he's so scared to do it, so he doesn't do it. But then off camera, he's like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. And while that's going on, they have the musical guest Dave Grohl, and he's singing "Learn to Fly" while he's like in the air in the cannon.
That's fun.
It's great. I love that.
Yeah, Dave Grohl did a lot of stuff with the Muppets.
Yeah.
So,
And then he was on Sesame Street. It was great.
yeah. All right. So our news segment ran a little long. We haven't talked in a while, so that's understandable. But let's get to the main topic of the show tonight.
Welcome
We
to
want to talk
Giant
about,
Size Pop Culture Shark.
yeah. Let's see. Spider-Man life story. This was something that I wanted Caleb to read for a long time, and he finally got to read it. Basically, I think it's a 6-issue series, and there's also an annual they did later.
Yes. Now, I did not read the annual, but we will be talking about it because might as well, and he'll just explain it to me.
Yeah. But basically, this is what if it's kind of like Dark Knight Returns a little bit, where it's like, what if Spider-Man aged in real time? So if he was born in the 60s, actually, I guess he'd be born in the 50s, got his powers in the 60s, and then go through like world events and tell his whole life up until his death at the end. Spoilers. But this series, I think it's really interesting because they take actual whatever big Spider-Man story was going on during that decade, and they kind of just do like a day in the life of Spider-Man during that decade, incorporating pieces of that story.
Yeah, whenever I got to the 80s, because it's no secret for me. I am not a fan of the '80s as like uh, as like a decade. Like I'm not into that whole like everyone's obsessed with the '80s thing. So
You
I
had to
was
be
like,
there. You had to be there, man.
I'm sure. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, it's '80s, and then it's Craven's Last Hunt. Like,
Yeah, and Venom mixed in, and you're like, wait,
yeah,
what's going on?
yeah.
Yeah. So let's just kind of talk about each decade. I've got the book sitting
Yeah.
right here.
So I do need to mention one thing. I need to say some hyperbole real quick, and this will
Okay.
just kind of encapsulate my thoughts on this 6-issue series.
Okay.
They need to stop making Spider-Man comics
Yeah.
because this is it.
Yeah.
Like you there's no point. Why
Yeah.
would you ever make another Spider-Man comic after this? This is
This
it. This is everything.
this is the perfect Spider-Man story. It really is. I'm glad you liked it. I'm
Yes.
assuming you loved it.
Yes.
It really is cool. So we'll start in the '60s, and we're gonna go full spoilers here.
Yeah.
It's in the '60s, everybody's worried about Vietnam. Flash is getting ready. He's been drafted. He's about to leave, and so Peter's having a bit of a crisis of faith about, I have superpowers. Why am I not over there fighting? you know?
Which, by the way, that's that scene with him and Flash after like he disses Flash, and then Gwen's like, "You should go apologize. You don't want that to be the last thing you say to him." And so that scene where he's having that conversation with Flash about why Flash is going over there, that's like the best I've ever seen Flash Thompson written. Because he's always been like the Spider-Man super fan, but like in a funny way. To the point where it's like creepy. He's Spider-Man super fan, and like I'm going to war because that's what Spider-Man would do.
Yeah. And Peter's there like, I'm not going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. And then so they're at a party for all this happening, and then Norman Osborn shows up, and he's like, "Oh, hey, yeah, I know you're Spider-Man, and don't do anything. There's pumpkin bombs everywhere. It's gonna kill everybody."
And I really think that's whenever I like the fact that in the first issue, you know exactly what this is going to be. This is going to be what's going on in the decade, what's the major thing, how is Spider-Man reacting to that, and what major villain are we going to be fighting this time?
Well, and it's the major events that were going on in the comics in the '60s. You had Flash going off the war, and you had the whole storyline of Norman knows my identity. Oh no, what do I do about it?
Right.
Yeah, so just really cool. I read this about 2 weeks ago, so it's a little fuzzy already. But I think at the end, Norman ends up in prison at the end of this chapter. And then Spider-Man has a long talk with Captain America, and he's like, "No, they need you here fighting. I'll go fight over there. They need you here fighting in New York."
So what happens is the conversation with Captain America happens before he goes, because what happens is he actually takes Norman home because he pities him, and he's like, "Well, it's not his fault." And then he has that conversation with Captain America, and then he has like this epiphany about responsibility, and then he's like, even if it's not technically Norman's fault, there is still danger to Norman Osborn being out and released. And so that's whenever he goes and he turns Norman in.
Yeah. So the other major events, Gwen finds out that Peter is a Spider-Man, which never happened in the comic books to my knowledge.
I don't think so.
But they're gonna tweak the story as this is Peter growing up, and he's gonna experience life events. So we'll move on to the '70s. But what's laid, the seeds that are laid here, is Captain America versus Iron Man is kind of in the background is starting to happen.
You tell, and honestly, that's what I love, because that is what Captain America would do. Captain America would go to Vietnam and see that America is not right, and he would fight for the other side.
Yeah, and so Iron Man's fighting with the U.S. troops. Captain America's he's fighting for the Vietnamese, but he's also he's trying to just stop everything, really.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right.
uh,
I think that we are far enough away that it's not a because we don't like to get political on
hmm
the show. This is a fun show. It may. I think we're far enough away from Vietnam. We didn't need to be over there.
yeah, and the a lot of people are like, "Oh, things are so bad," and I'm always like, "Did you see what was going on in the '70s?
Right.
We're not there yet. This is far from the worst things have been. '70s were insanity." Um, all right, so let's move on to the '70s. We jump ahead a little bit in time now. I think it's 1977. I'm just kind of flipping through the book. Flash has passed away.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that scene broke my heart because he's at the grave and I'm like, okay, so he's at like, is this Gwen's grave? Is this Uncle Ben's grave? Who do we got going on here? And then Gwen shows up and I'm like, oh, so it's Uncle Ben's grave. And then they walk away and it says Flash Thompson and I'm like, what? Oh man.
Yeah, so they are definitely playing with the history.
Mm-hmm.
So we see that Peter is working with Reed now at the labs, and he's also working with Doctor Octopus.
Mm-hmm.
And Otto has kind of reformed, and we see that there's this strained relationship going on between Harry and Norman. Uh, and then we see that Gwen is working with Dr. Miles Warren. So the
Yes.
bad things are about to happen with Miles Warren's there. So that's been what's interesting about reading the Spider-Man epics is I know they didn't plan for Miles to be a bad guy when he first
Mm-hmm.
appeared, but you could if you read it that way, knowing he's a bad guy, there are hints all over the place that he knows that Peter is Spider-Man stuff. So it's interesting. Um, let's see. I'm trying to remember. We get a lot of conflict between Mary Jane and Peter. She reveals that she does know he's Spider-Man, and it's not a good relationship between those two.
Yeah, that and that's whenever we were talking about her mask when she has like that drunken outburst. uh I mean that you can just see so much pain in that person. That's
Yeah.
it's great, but it's sad. And here's the thing. um Another reason why this is the seminal Spider-Man story, this is the only Spider-Man story that anyone ever needs, is because it Peter Parker is never happy. Um, no matter what, like even if there's always something else, you know.
Well, he's Charlie Brown. you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, right.
it's he could never get his life together. I mean, he's been given all these great things, and he just cannot make it work. you
Hmm.
know, um, we see some confrontations with Peter and Reed. Uh, Reed is his life is kind of falling apart. Him and Sue are having issues. Um, and so what else? So Norman is getting inside Harry's head, and he's trying to convince him to take revenge on Peter. So Harry becomes a Black Goblin, which looks really cool.
Yeah. Oh my God, Black Goblin is so cool.
And
Uh,
he attacks the lab where Miles Warren is and stuff. And during the fight, they discovered that there are cloned bodies of Norman, Peter, and Gwen in tubes. And Harry freaks out, throws some pumpkin bombs, and I think all the bodies are destroyed except for Peter's. Is that right?
no, Gwen.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
Gwen and well, we'll get to it. In the tubes, Gwen and the Norman body are destroyed. The Peter clone is saved, and then you find out that oh no, that was the real Gwen, and the Gwen that's married to Peter is a clone.
right, right.
And that's the big twist: is that the real Gwen had been kidnapped sometime in the past by Miles because he wanted her for himself, and so the Gwen that has been married to Peter has been the clone the whole time.
which yeah, like you said, it's been a couple weeks.
Yeah,
But yeah, definitely that is
and it's shocking when it happens because we know the clone story, and then you're like,
right.
wait, what is happening?
Because the explosion happened, and I expected Peter to go in there, and then a Peter to come out, and you're not sure which one it is,
Yeah,
because that's how it goes.
yeah, but so Peter comes out carrying the Peter body. He's like, "Oh, I couldn't save the others, but they're just clones." And Miles like, "Oh no, that's Gwen," and you're just like, "Wait, what?" So at the end, I mean, they don't say it, but Gwen and Peter basically get a divorce because her whole life has been a lie. So she leaves to
With the
go
clone.
with the clone. So one of my problems with this whole story is her storyline's just dropped and it's not resolved, but it is resolved. It's in the annual.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So her
So
story picks up over there.
so does the annual take place over the course of several decades, or is it just like in the 80s?
It's several decades. It is Jay
Okay.
Jonah's life, him in jail, and him. So basically, the annual, real quick, is basically, I guess it was the Spider Slayers got somebody killed, and so since he had paid Smythe to build the Spider Slayers, he went to prison. And so the whole time he's in prison with Norman Osborn, and they're like they keep having like these recovery groups in prison of people that Spider-Man who's destroyed their life. So like J. Jonah Jameson keeps going to these with Norman, and he just cannot forgive Spider-Man the whole time. He's just like, it's Spider-Man's fault, and like John Jameson does not, he won't come and visit him, you know, and he's like, you gotta let go of Spider-Man, Dad, you know. And so there's this counselor, this lady that's the uh, in the prison that's trying to help them reform. I thought it was Dr. Kafka the whole time, and then you find out no, it's the Gwen clone, that she is trying to help those whose Spider-Man had affected their lives.
Okay.
Um, so basically, at the end, Norman gets out, but he like sends a letter to J. Jonah Jameson saying, "Hey, I left something for you." So he finally gets out of prison, and he's kind of realizing that, and this is a little vague. I might have something that's wrong, but he's starting to realize that maybe Spider-Man wasn't the bad guy. Maybe it was me. Maybe I'm the fool. But Norman has left him brand new Spider Slayer armor, and he puts it on, but he doesn't go after Spider-Man. He goes after Scorpion because Scorpion's one of those things that he left behind, one of the things that he caused, and now he's going to take the responsibility and clean it up.
That's cool.
Yeah. So he ends up dying in the battle of Scorpion at the end, but it's a pretty neat little story. So about J. Jonah Jameson finding redemption at the end. So
I like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, this series is fantastic. Chip Zdarsky is awesome.
yes. Oh, have you read his Daredevil?
I have not read it.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Anyway, 80s.
Let's get to the 80s, yeah, because we're going to start running out of time here.
Yes.
So the 80s, the big story there is Secret Wars has broken out.
Right. Yes, it starts with Secret Wars. Honestly, that was about the point where I figured out what they were doing. It took me 3 issues to figure out what they were doing because it just didn't register to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, Secret Wars, Craven's Last. Okay.
Yeah, and it's so cool how they've done this. Like these are these events. They're keeping them in order when they happened, and it's so cool. And it builds like this really cool story. You got Mary Jane, who's now with Peter. She's pregnant. He's not there because he's away at Secret Wars. Aunt May's starting to have dementia. And then Peter gets the Venom suit. That's the big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So when he gets back from Secret Wars, Mary Jane has given birth to twins, Claire and Benjamin. Let's see what else is going on. So I think Craven's going around
shooting
killing
people.
people
Yep.
dressed as
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. And he's like he's talking to Reed, and he's like, maybe I should go back to the other costume. I never had um I never had uh copycats before. And he's like, well, yeah, you should, because I figured out that your suit's alive. And then Peter's like, yeah, I know. He's like,
Yeah.
you're still wearing it, and it really reminds me of a Batman Beyond, where he's like, the suit is what helps. It's like old man Bruce Wayne wearing the Batman Beyond suit. It keeps me relevant, is I believe what Peter says.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's almost like a drug addict. He can't take it off,
yeah, right, and but it's honestly that I think is the most. This is my favorite hyperbole, but it's probably true. This is my favorite Black Suit Saga story because I love the fact that Peter knows and he still puts it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he knows full and well what it is doing. It's Peter's not stupid. He knows. And yeah, so I love that.
So we see that Aunt May's dementia is getting worse. They're going to have to put her in a home, but Peter's like, "Oh, I could take care of her." She's like, "You can't take care of yourself," you know.
Mhm.
um, so then he goes out web slinging and gets confronted by Craven, who's wearing the black Spider-Man costume. And they do the whole Spider-Man gets shot and buried thing, and so then he's done all this without the symbiote. He left the symbiote behind. He went ahead and wore his old costume. Well, the symbiote breaks out and it's going to go rescue Spider-Man from the grave, which is really cool.
Yeah,
And it makes total sense,
that's not what happened in the book in Craven's Last Hunt, right? It's been a while since I
Right.
read that.
Yeah, that's definitely not what happened in the book. uh, so that because I think he's just buried for like an issue or two, and then finally he just breaks his way out.
Yes, yeah, that's
I
what it was.
recall. Like it's been a long time. I know we keep saying that, but we read a lot of comic books. They all start to run together.
Yeah, and how many Clone Sagas have they done?
And how many different ways have they told these stories in the Ultimate Universe or the cartoons or this or that? You get them mixed up. It's going to happen.
And then there's Hunted, which was Nick Spencer's Craven's Last Hunt, which is recent.
Yeah, so we see Craven going around as Spider-Man and being extremely violent, and then Venom shows up. Peter under control of the symbiote, and he's just out of control, and he's fighting Craven, and Craven's like, "Oh, this, you are the perfect Spider-Man now," and then he has left a weapon for Mary Jane to use if he ever goes out of control with the Venom suit. So she uses it on Peter. So at the end, they're kind of at a breaking point. Him and Mary Jane. She's gonna leave him because she can't live like this anymore. So she just leaves Peter there with Aunt May at the end. And then we see, for those who don't know, Craven's Last Hunt is famous because it ends with Craven's suicide at the end. He takes a shotgun and kills himself. This one ends the same way, but before he pulls the trigger, the symbiote shows up and takes over him. And you're like, oh, okay, where is this going? It's pretty wild. So this is around the time I started reading comic books was the 90s, and reading Spider-Man in particular. So the 90s, what is so infamous in the 90s was, I believe this is the Clone Saga part.
Yeah, this is Ben Reilly.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, during the 90s, they brought back the Clone Saga, which was in the 70s. They brought back the clone from that story, and why the story is so infamous is they had a story, they were going to wrap it up, and someone in marketing said, "Oh no, we can stretch this out forever." And they did. I like the Clone Saga personally. it's a story I enjoy. I do agree it goes on for too long. I think the ending is quite awesome. When Norman Osborn comes back, that's the big revelation at the end, is that Norman's not dead and he's been behind everything. I think that story, I think it's called Revelations, is really cool. So during the 90s, we get Dr. Octopus is on a rampage, and he goes after Ben Riley, which is the Spider-Man clone. And during all this time, Peter Parker, which has now formed Parker Industries, which is from the Dan Slott run, which didn't happen until way later in the comic books, but they've had it happen here, which would make sense. Peter's in his 40s or 50s, so this would be that time in your life when you are building your career. Tony confronts him, and he's trying to take over the company. And we see that Peter, he's no longer with Mary Jane, so he's actually with Jessica Jones.
Yeah,
which is
I think it's funny, but it's also cool.
It's a cool reference because she was a character not invented till the 2000s, and they Bendis retroactively said, "Oh yeah, she went to high school with Peter,"
and was in love with him.
Yeah, obsessed with him and stuff. So, anyways, at the end, they're captured by Dr. Octopus and by Harry Osborn, and one of the big deals in the Clone Saga was they kept doing stories where they said, "Oh no, Ben Riley's been the real Peter, and you're the fake." That happened in the real comic books. People lost their minds during that when it happened. A lot of people quit reading Spider-Man and never came back. But they did a story during that time called Spider-Man: The Final Adventure, where Peter and Mary Jane retired and moved to Oregon, I think. So they do that here in this story, where Peter is he says, "Oh Ben, yeah, you're the real Spider-Man. I'm a fake," and he does this so that he can go retire with Mary Jane at the end. The other big thing that happens is Dr. Octopus accidentally kills Harry. So Peter goes and confronts old man Norman Osborn, who's now out of prison, and he reveals to him that Harry's dead. And then he tries to Norman freaks out, tries to kill Peter, and then Norman has a heart attack and dies. Which is interesting because in real Clone Saga, he came back, and this one they finally resolved the story. So it's pretty neat parallels. So at the end of the comic of the 90s, Peter and Mary Jane get back together, and now they're retired with Ben Riley as the Spider-Man. Still with me, Caleb?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Just I've been talking for a while.
No. I'm letting you, because whenever we get to issue 5 and 6, that's whenever I have a lot to say. Because issue 5 and 6 are my eras, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about Clone Saga, you like Clone Saga, I'm gonna let you take point on that.
Right. So we get to 2000s. What was going on in the comic books at that time was J. Michael Straczynski had his run, and they did a storyline where Spider-Man and Mary Jane's daughter never died, and they gave her own series in an alternate timeline called Spider-Girl. So we see kind of references to both of those during the 2000s part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it opens with Morlun, who's a villain from J. Michael Straczynski. He is fighting Ben Riley, and he kills him, revealing that he is the clone.
Yeah. Here's the thing. You know how much I love Ezekiel and Morlun and the spider totems. If you told me that was one of the issues, I would read this in a heartbeat. Chapter 5, honestly, probably my favorite issue.
It's really cool because Morlun is going around killing all the spider totems. So Peter's in Oregon. He travels to New York to try to stop all this and gets involved in the Civil War going on.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, Morlun has gone to Oregon to hunt down Peter, and he's not there.
Right. Well, and super cool that they set up Civil War 4 decades ago.
Yeah, and to me, this is kind of like this is the only time I've ever liked Iron Man, the comic books, was during the Civil War period, and he was just a jerk. That's the only time I've ever liked Iron Man. And when they kind of reboot his character after Civil War, I was kind of like, eh, you know. But this comic book has Iron Man. The two complaints you have about the story is the treatment of Iron Man and Reed in these. Reed is kind of like a deadbeat dad who's obsessed with um, his work more than his family, which is how the comics have been. But he still always comes back to his family. In this series, he never quite resolves that. And then Iron Man has just been a jerk since issue one, you
Mhm.
know. So, but Spider Man's fighting in the Civil War. Marloon, meanwhile, is fighting both of his kids who are now teenagers. Fighting both of Peter's kids. You think that he kills the son, but he doesn't. He does show up in the next issue. But while he's feeding on the son, the daughter realizes he's weak at that point, and she kills Morlun during that point.
Yeah, and so I hate to say it, I feel like that in a sense a story involving uh twins, it's not Sins Past, but like this is like,
Oh, that's right, the twins.
yeah. Um so it's not Sins Past, but like if you're gonna like, because you got to do Morlun because that's like he was the big Spider-Man villain of the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do Civil War, and then you got to do Sins Past because that is the story that everybody
And
knows.
so they've combined, and I didn't realize that's what you said. Is they combined the twins from Sins Past with Spider Girl, Mayday Parker from the other series. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. I like it a lot, actually.
Yeah, yeah. Like we said, this is such a good Spider-Man story. It reminds me a little bit of X-Men Grand Design, where he takes all the events of the X-Men through 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s and weaves it into a coherent story like it had been planned out from the beginning. Instead of
Yeah.
them, just making it up every month. This is kind of like what this is. Um, so yeah, the Civil War happens, and we'll go ahead and move on to what I think is probably my favorite issue, the final issue, the 2010s. Uh, are you a big fan of issue 6?
I am actually, because what they decide to do is, in my opinion, the best thing Slot's ever done.
Yeah, they. So the story is Peter and Miles Morales are going up to one of Doctor Doom's, I think, space stations or something. And I can't remember if they're trying to turn off a doomsday weapon or there's something they're trying to do. I can't remember exactly what it is.
Uh, Doom's Armada or something like that.
Yeah, it's some Doctor Doom thing.
You know Doctor Doom, and he does his things.
Yeah, you know what's up. But this issue gets crazy because
Yes.
he starts realizing that Miles Morales doesn't sound right. He's talking really weird. He's using terms he wouldn't normally say, you know. And while they're fixing the machine, all of a sudden Craven shows up. But it's not Craven, it's Venom. uh, and it's really cool seeing Venom as Craven.
Oh yeah.
And, Peter's an old man at this point.
He's like 70 or something.
Yeah. And so he's fighting Venom. It's not going great. But when he finally destroys Venom, you see the suit fly off, and Craven's just a skeleton,
Yeah,
which is
yeah, it is.
really cool because they've kind of gotten away from this a little bit. But when the symbiotes were first introduced, it was you have to get rid of that suit because it's going to feed on you forever until there's nothing left of you.
Yes.
And this is so we've seen here. This is a guy who's had the symbiote for 30 years plus, and this is what happens to him.
Yes.
You know, so
No,
the
it's. I mean, it's cool, but it is haunting.
yeah. So Peter figures out that Miles Morales is secretly Otto. And it is so cool because that's the Superior Spider-Man storyline
Yes.
with a twist.
Oh, it's the best twist too. I loved it.
Yeah. So they're adapting the Miles Morales story, and they're adapting where Doctor Octopus took over Spider-Man to become the Superior Spider-Man. So they're having this fight, and they end up fighting like on the astral plane. Like they get too close, and something happens, and they end up on the astral plane. So Doctor Octopus is resurrecting all the old villains, and they're all attacking Peter. So Peter starts pulling out all the Spider-Mans from the different decades, and they all start fighting. And Doctor Octopus is starting to get the upper hand, and then this is so good. Peter summons Aunt May, and I love it because one of the things about reading all the old '60s comic books and '70s comic books is there's always this weird connection between Doctor Octopus and Aunt May.
Yeah.
Aunt May thinks Doctor Octopus is awesome, and that Spider-Man's a villain. At one point, they almost get married. And in this, they did get married at one point. And when she died, Otto like lost his way. He like lost his mind after that point. So in this, Aunt May kind of talks him out of it, saying, this isn't you. Come back to the light and all this. And so at the end, he releases his grip on Miles, and then him and Aunt May kind of have this moment where talking about how he's always wanted to save Ben and he never could, and that's been his dream, that this reoccurring dream he's had forever.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end, the space station is exploding. There's only one life pod. He throws Miles on there, sends him away, tells him, you gotta be Spider-Man now, basically. Sends him away.
It's so good.
The space station's falling apart. This is the part I love. Space station's falling apart. Peter can't hold it together. And then the symbiote shows up to help him. I love it. I love it so much. The symbiote is one of my favorite things in Spider-Man comics because it is literally a jilted girlfriend is what it is. It's an ex that still loves you on some level, even though they hate you at the same time.
Yes. No, that's honestly. Have you seen the Venom movie, the first one?
I have not seen either of the Venom movies.
Oh, okay. They're romantic comedies.
Yeah.
That's what they are.
Yeah, and so once you understand that the Venom is just like an ex-girlfriend, he makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
So at the end, Peter dies.
Oh, and his last words, I started tearing up.
Oh, it's a tearjerker.
You're my heart, Mary Jane Watson. You're my jackpot. Oh,
it's so good.
And that's what I've always wanted in I want it to be adapted. I want Peter Parker to open up the door and face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot. I need that in live action in some capacity.
Yeah.
But it's so good.
So at the end, we see that Otto is in like an iron lung to keep him alive, and he apologizes, and Mary Jane gives Miles the Spider-Man suit so he can carry on the legacy. And then we see the dream again about the burglar, but this time Spider-Man stops the burglar. And I get chills just saying that. It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic. I love the series. If you're a Spider-Man fan, this is
all you need.
I want to make a list one day of the 10 Marvel stories that everybody should read, and this is definitely on there.
Yes, absolutely.
It's so good.
And what I like about it is it's really a because what I've loved about Peter and Miles is it's very much a Bruce Wayne Terry McGinnis, um, and so you get the sense that Miles Morales' life is going to be happier than Peter's, and that's what I love.
Yeah, it ends on a hopeful note that things are going to be a
Hmm.
bright future. Um, so let's we're trying to run a little bit out of time, but let's compare this to some other Spider-Man feature stories. Have you ever read Spider-Man Reign?
Yes,
So that one I feel is very different. It's a very different.
that's the one with the mayor and
Yes, Eddie Brock's the
okay,
mayor.
right.
Yeah. Um, it was trying to be it was trying to be like Dark Knight Returns, and it to me it's interesting, but it just doesn't work.
I think the cardinal sin that a comic book can do is try to be like Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah,
You know, um, there's only one other time I think a book tried and it worked, and that was Old Man Logan.
yeah, but
Um,
I feel like that one's more them just riffing on Unforgiven.
yes, it is. It is. It is.
Yeah, yeah.
um, but yes, that very much like Spider-Man Rain. It's been a long time since I read it. I don't remember liking it.
It's just dark, and Peter like gave up after Mary Jane died of cancer, and it's just very bleak.
Yeah.
you know,
What was the one where like Mary Jane dies because he poisoned her with
Spider-Man Rain, his
what?
bodily fluids.
Oh,
Yes,
was that? Oh, was that Rain? Yeah.
yes, it's Spider-Man Rain.
Okay.
Um, I mean, it's okay. It's kind of a Sandman story more than a Spider-Man story. There's a lot about Sandman and his daughter in it. Um, but I mean, it's kind of cool seeing Peter having like one last fight against the Sinister Six and stuff. But it's just a bleak story where I think
Hmm.
Spider-Man life story succeeds is it's a celebration of Spider-Man.
Right. Right. And that's the thing that people don't get about Dark Knight Returns is Dark Knight Returns is dark, but like it ends on like the most hopeful note a Batman story can end on.
Yeah, yeah. I love Dark Knight Returns. That's such a good story. But
Oh yeah.
yeah. Um, so they did another life story.
Yeah, I
Um,
was gonna ask because there was another one, but I couldn't remember which one it was.
so I'll pull it up now, and this one is on the Marvel subscription service. Fantastic Four: The Life Story. It's by Mark Russell. It's pretty good. It most of the stories they're adapting are all from the '60s, though. Throughout most of it, because that's when really the golden stories are told for Fantastic Four was the '60s. When Stanley and Jack Kirby were like on fire, like every issue was something massive.
I would imagine they get to the 2010s and they do like the Death of Johnny Storm and Future Foundations, though.
It's a little blurry. Johnny Storm's death happens like in the '80s.
Oh,
it
okay.
happens pretty quick, actually. I was kind of surprised. The other weird thing is Doom's motivation is never really set up in the story, so I don't know if that part of it works. But for the most part, I enjoyed this. Basically, the whole thing is Reed has a vision that Galactus is coming, and nobody believes him throughout all these decades. And he keeps trying to get everybody ready that Galactus is coming, and then that's kind of like the final story: is Galactus is here.
So let me know this because I've told you that Fantastic Four has never spoken to me on any level. Is this a place to go?
I would probably read something else first before I go here.
Okay. We will figure it out. There will be one day where I'm gonna read that Fantastic Four story and like I'm just gonna get it. It's gonna happen. I know.
Yeah.
but it just hasn't
And
happened yet.
I'm torn between telling to read John Byrne or Mark Waid. I myself have not read the original Stan Lee stories. It could be those. I just haven't read them yet. I don't have those epics, so I would like to get to those one day. So just real quick, are there any other characters? They don't have to be Marvel that you would like to see a life story of.
I honestly would love. I think a Daredevil life story would be really cool. Um, I would say Iron Man life story. I'm sticking to Marvel for right now because I have some ideas. So for DC, I think Flash life story would be really cool because it wouldn't. What I would do is it wouldn't just be about Barry Allen. Like I would start with Barry Allen, and he's like being mentored by Jay Garrick, and then after about halfway through, I would have because that's about the 90s, 80s or 90s. That's whenever you have Barry Allen die, and then that's whenever the life story becomes about Wally.
Yeah, I can see Flash working. DC, they do more legacy characters over there, so I could see maybe Justice Society doing some type of life story. Um, the one I had is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles life story. They just did the last Ronin, so they've kind of told the final story. So now, if you take like all the incarnations over the years and kind of weave it into one epic story, I think it would be really cool.
What you do is you do a Daredevil life story, and then you open it with him dropping his turtles.
Mm-hmm.
And then like you go over and you read the Turtles life story, and then Matt Murdock drops his turtles.
Why have we never gotten a Daredevil Ninja Turtle crossover?
I don't know.
It's like the no-brainer, and it has never happened.
Because like I mean that's how it originally started, right? Like it was
yes, Daredevil's gets hit by a Daredevil knocks a kid out of the way of a. I'm sorry, Matt Murdock knocks a kid out of the way of a truck, and Toxic Waste splashes him in the face.
Yeah, the
in Ninja
classic.
Turtles, a kid is carrying a thing of turtles and gets pushed by Matt Murdock out of the way of the truck.
Mm-hmm.
The turtles fall in the ooze. They get mutated, and so in Daredevil, you have Stick as his mentor. So the turtles have Splinter.
Yeah.
And then Daredevil fights the hand. The turtles fight the foot.
The foot. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all a parody of Frank Miller's work.
And then you've got. Do they have an Elektra? Or is that just Raphael with his size?
I don't think they have an Elektra. I mean, April's kind of drawn like Elektra at first, but you know.
When did they introduce Shredder's daughter?
Korai's not till way later.
Okay.
Issue 40 or something.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I think Ninja Turtles life story would be cool. There's just Captain America life story would be awesome.
In theory, it could. I don't know how, because you would probably have to start in like the 40s and then skip a couple.
Yeah, decades. It just also jumps. Yeah, it would start in the 40s. It also it misses a decade. It jumps to the 60s. Hulk life story would be cool.
Yeah. Honestly, one that I think would be awesome would be Thor life story.
How would you do that though?
You would make it like, so these things like six issues, you make it like 12 or 24 issues.
You know, like just occurred to me. Go ahead and finish your Thor thought, then I'll switch.
No, I mean like that's it. Like you do like 24 issues, like a maxi series or something like that. So you get your Simonson stuff, you Jason Aaron stuff, JMS. Um, that's how I would do it.
I
It
just
would be difficult, but yeah.
Yeah, I just realized I have another comic book sitting on my shelf that is just like Spider-Man Life Story,
Okay.
and that is The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. It is the same format, Scrooge going through the decades, all the adventures he had, how he made his fortune. It's fantastic. So if you like Spider-Man Life Story, I highly recommend you check out Scrooge McDuck's Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck.
And if you like The Dark Knight Returns, I completely recommend Darkwing Duck: The Dark Knight Returns. Have you ever read that?
I have not. I was never big on Darkwing Duck.
Okay,
I
I love Darkwing Duck.
I was a Scrooge guy, so still am. So that's our discussion on Life Story. We'd like to hear any what your thoughts on Spider-Man Life Story was, or any ideas for life stories they could do. Yeah, just it's fantastic. If you're a Spider-Man fan, this is the top. This is it. All right, so let's move on to our last segment. Let's see here. I've got everything messed up. So we do a weekly segment called "He Made Me Do It," where we take turns making the other person read or watch or play something they haven't before that we would recommend. So this time it was the Amazon series "Good Omens," which was based on the Neil Gaiman, I think it was Terry Pratchett
I think
book
so.
series. So Caleb, what do you think of Good Omens?
So I'm going to be tactful about this because I almost don't want to spoil anything about it. Because I go into this. No, I love Neil Gaiman stuff, and I saw the trailer for this when it first came out, but I never saw it, and so I kind of forgot. This is fantastic.
It's so good.
You know what? So you know the vibe I got from it. Have you ever seen Dogma?
Yes.
I really got a Dogma vibe from this, but
Yes.
in reverse, where they're trying to prevent Armageddon instead of cause it.
Yeah, so the really quick non-spoilery pitch would be an angel and a demon.
The angel is Michael Sheen, who's fantastic. The demon is David Tennant, who is always fantastic.
Yeah, and basically they've been on the earth since the beginning. They both love it, and Armageddon is approaching, and they're both like, how do we stop this from happening?
Yeah, they're like, Earth is awesome and we don't want to leave.
And that is basically the plot. There's
Yes.
a lot more to it, but that's enough. That's all you need to know.
Yes. You've got so many people. I did not know who is in this show. I knew Michael Sheen and David Tennant were in the show, and that was it. You got Nick Offerman.
Yeah,
it's great. You've got who was John Hamm. Oh my gosh, John Hamm.
Yeah.
That one really surprised me. I'm like, what? He's in this, and he's that character. I'm not going to say who he is, but he's that character.
Yeah. You've also got Michael McKean, who is kind of like a comedy legend. He was in Spinal Tap. He's been in several things.
Yes. He was Chuck in Better Call Saul.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's not just about the angels and demons. There are several other characters involved in this story, kind of weaves into this. I can't spoil it.
Yeah. Right. This is the one where we'll talk about Blazing Saddles. We'll talk about Court of the Owls and all that. There are some things where you just should not spoil. Just go into this blind, and it's going to be a very odd experience.
Yeah, I mean it's that British humor, Back to the Galaxy type stuff. But
which I love that.
So I'll say this. some people are hesitant about watching this. We both come from a Christian background, so you're kind of like, I don't know if I want them poking fun at this. They're actually pretty respectful for the most part.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
they take a lot of things from the Bible. There's some things where I'm like, I don't know about that, but it's not too bad. And
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
not like Dogma. Dogma is very blasphemous at points and stuff.
Yes.
This
Yeah.
is this is this is more respectful with the
Yeah.
material. You do have some angels swearing at some points, so if that
Mhm.
bugs you, that might be But for the
Yeah.
most part,
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. I really like their
Mhm.
relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
They have announced a season 2, which I don't know how I feel about that.
I mean,
Because
like
it's
what?
kind of like the perfect ending.
Right. Uh,
Uh, so we'll see where that goes. Um,
I also love that like it's just accepted. Like anytime someone wants to write about a demon, um, and they listen to music, it's always Queen.
yeah, every time he's in the car, it's a
Yeah.
Queen song. Yeah.
Um, but no, so for me in terms of like, religion, I'm at the point where like I can I don't get too offended easily. So like this wasn't like horrible for me. I also got a Lucifer vibe from this,
Mm-hmm.
because in and I've only watched the first season of Lucifer, but Lucifer, like he's done with hell, he's done running hell.
Mm-hmm.
And so he starts to run like a nightclub on Earth, and he's like, Earth is awesome, why would I ever want to leave?
Yeah. Yeah. I just lost my train of thought. But yeah, this one, I love this show.
Oh
It's
yeah, it's
great.
great. Yeah.
I've still got some friends who are like, I'm not gonna watch that. Oh no, I was gonna say, yeah, I'm pretty okay with stuff like this. There are certain lines where you start to cross. I'm like, okay, I'm out. But this one, I don't think it crosses any of those lines.
Mm.
When it comes to my religious beliefs. So I think,
Yeah.
I,
I think the only one that like really got me, and I wasn't even offended. I'm just like, yeah, this is not for me. Was Invention of Lying.
I have not seen that one.
That it's a
Ricky Gervais. I know
Yeah.
what the movie is. I just haven't seen it. Yeah.
So like where it ends up going. And
No, but I know that Ricky he's a big time atheist, so it would not
yeah,
surprise me where it goes at the end.
so uh he he it's a world without lying. He discovers that you can lie. Wow. And so then his mom's on his deathbed and she's scared of dying, and so then he tells her about this man in the sky, and you're
Oh,
gonna go to
yeah,
this.
yeah.
And then that becomes like the second half of the movie, because they're like, well, what do you do, how do you get up there? And he's like, well, there are 10 rules that you have to follow. And so
So it's him inventing religion. Got it. Yeah,
right, exactly. And so
yeah.
they don't have churches, they have place where you talk about man in the sky. And
Gotcha.
there is one funny thing: whenever he's making the rules, he writes them on pizza boxes and he comes out like Moses. That's
Oh
one
yeah,
that
yeah,
that's funny. I can get behind that. Like it's one of those things where like I can appreciate and recognize the artistry of comedy, but it's still not for me.
yeah. The one that got me that was like that was Paul, uh, the one with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost about the
never
alien.
never saw that one.
Yeah, don't. It is a we are going to bash Christianity as much as we can fest, and it's
That's unfortunate, because I love
yeah.
I love that comedy duo.
I do too. And I was like, oh, I paid money to see you bash me for 2 hours. Thanks. And it was just, yeah. I do not
Mhm.
recommend that one at all. So, but Good Omens, awesome series, very funny. Uh, I really enjoy this one. I really like how the story all weaves together at the end. A lot of fun. Um, so I think it is your turn to pick something for me to watch. I don't
Yeah.
know if you have one, but we were
Uh,
talking about doing. Well, I'll wait to hear what your pick is, and I'll mention that.
well, so I have a pick, but if you want to start what what you want to start, I have some ideas there too.
So what we may do is for the rest of the summer, just do the stinkers of summer and just
Okay.
pick bad movies.
Okay.
So yeah, we could if you have a bad movie for me to watch, we can do that definitely.
All right. Here we go. This is it. I'm gonna make you watch Batman and Harley Quinn.
Okay, so that's on HBO Max.
I believe it is. Let me look that up real quick just to make sure.
It should be.
They're all on there.
Yeah, and
It's on there.
so most of my picks for this, I'll give you a hint. The summer of stinkers is most of the ones I'm going to make a pick are going to have riff tracks available, so you can watch the riffs of them. Because otherwise, that's just too mean to make you watch some of these without some humor attached to them.
Yeah. I will let you know. You love Batman the Animated Series, right?
Oh, absolutely. And Harley Quinn's portrayal on that is fantastic.
Yeah. This is gonna insult you more than Paul.
That's hard to do. We shall see on that one.
Basically this movie is extremely insulting. Like it's horrible.
Okay. All right. So, but you just know that, and this is what's going to happen during the summer as we pick things. You throw one that's bad at me, I'm going to throw one even worse back at you. So, all right. Well, that's our show for tonight, though. Hope you enjoyed our discussion. Like we said, Spider-Man Life Story, amazing story. Pick it up. It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Good Omens. Also check that out. Two really great things. Next week is July 3rd. I don't have any plans. Do you have any plans for July 3rd? Can we still?
I think I have fireworks, but I'm sure that that's going to be later in the night. So yeah,
Okay.
if we could probably start at the same time we did, and we'll probably have a shorter show anyway because we won't have as much to catch up on.
Okay. Yeah, that'll work. So join us next week. We will have a whole new show and exciting topics, and you'll hear what I think of Batman and Harley Quinn and what devious revenge I have for Caleb. But until then, I've been Final Monkey.
And I'm Caleb.
And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
See ya.